With the tall coaster track soaring above the entrance, welcome to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, a place like no other. And here's the entrance, and as you can see, they have a new sign out front supplanting that 150 anniversary one they used to have. And we begin our tour of this park right in front of the Mueller carousel, the classic one. The band organ wasn't working again this year. They had recorded music, but the carousel is still in beautiful condition. So we're going to make a counterclockwise run of the park here, and there are quite a few changes. Over here on the right is Point Plaza, which is the park's big gift shop, and Cedar Point does have some of the most phenomenal souvenirs that you can find at any park. They're beautifully themed. Over on the left is the South Skyride Station, and underneath that is CP Shops, which has lots of really beautifully themed t-shirts and gifts. They also have a large selection of items by Coaster Dynamics, where they have recreations of pretty much every roller coaster they've ever had at Cedar Point. So let's move down the Midway. This is called the main Midway, and the Skyride travels the length of the main Midway and ends further down there to the north. This over here on the left is Raptor, which was one of the biggest inverted coasters when it was built, and it's still a really good ride, very popular. The tower that you see way at the end there are 3 towers that you can see. 2 of them on either side are for Top Thrill 2, and the one in the middle is Power Tower, which is a power shot tower. The sort of copper-colored coaster is Valraven, going through its paces there. And over here on the right are a whole set of games and concessions. You'll notice the Midway is huge, and the reason is this park gets really crowded. An average day will see 30 to 50,000 people in the park. Now I'm here really early in the morning after the park just opened, so people are still coming into the park, so there's a little more room to breathe here. There are also, you notice, lots of beautiful plantings everywhere in the park. Quite a bit of shade, lots of places to sit and relax. The tower that you see in the distance is Windseeker, which is a giant swing ride, and all those colorful umbrellas spinning there is part of Kiddie Kingdom, which is one of 2 big Kiddieland areas, actually one of 3 big Kiddieland areas in the park. The Funway over here on the right has some arcade games and also has a really neat mirror maze. And these games over here on the right hadn't opened at that point. In fact, you'll find that quite a few rides hadn't opened at that point. They were going to be opening a little later on in the day. This is Max Air, a giant frisbee ride. That was the largest in the world when it was built. And that's Cedar Point's calling card, is they generally will get the largest of any type of ride that they can get at the time. So when it opens, it's a big record holder. And of course, records are always made to be broken. So even though it's not the biggest in the world anymore, it's still a really good ride. You can see the giant wheel over there on the right. We'll take a little detour here through Kiddie Kingdom. And over here on the left is the second of 3 carousels that they have in the park. It's a 1924 Denzel carousel, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. And now we'll leave the Kiddie Kingdom area and head over to one of the newest sections in the park, the boardwalk area. This big building that you see in front of you is the Coliseum, and it has a huge arcade in the basement, and that arcade has a mini golf course in there and a bowling alley and of course lots of video games. Here's the big bumper car arena. Straight in front of us you can see the Grand Pavilion, which is, in my opinion, the best eatery in the park. It's got great food in there. That over there is Gatekeeper, which is the coaster we saw going over the entrance. It's a wing coaster. And in front of us now is Calypso. And then over on the left is the Wild Mouse. And this whole area is trying to replicate the feel of a boardwalk amusement park. And in the distance, beyond the Wild Mouse, there is Lake Erie. Cedar Point is a resort area that has a whole section of hotels that you can get. There's the Breakers Express, which is down on the causeway, and then off in the distance, which you can't quite see from here, but we'll see a little later, is the Breakers Hotel, which is this huge complex right on Lake Erie. So you could theoretically just stay right on the park property, and that gives you early entry into the park and a special your own entrance toward the back there that you can come in. So now we're going to walk through this area, and this is Planet Snoopy. And there are two Peanuts-themed kids areas. So we just saw Kiddie Kingdom, that was one kids area. Planet Snoopy is another kids area. And as you would expect, all of the rides are themed to Peanuts characters. I really like this waterfall over here. That's a nice touch. Many years ago, this used to be the Berenstain Bears area. Over in this area, you can have photo ops with the Peanuts characters. They come out a few times a day. Or if you just want one right away, you can have a photo op with Snoopy and his cookies there. Or you can have a photo op with Snoopy over here on the right. There were a couple other little shops over here on the right on this section of Midway, but those are in transition right now. I don't know what was going to go there. The restaurant Melt, which served grilled cheeses, used to be there, but the chain went bankrupt. So right now they're figuring out what's going to go in there. Over here is my favorite gift shop in the whole park, the Pagoda gift shop. We're going in the back entrance, but this gives you an idea of just how much different merchandise they offer here. This is where I got my limited edition replica of the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad. They had a Lionel make them one. It's a really nice engine. If you want airbrushed artwork, there's the place you get it. And we are now at the back of Auntie Anne's Pretzels. You can smell those all over this area. Who wouldn't want a chubby guinea pig on their shirt? There is the North Station of the Sky Ride. That giant blue lift hill in the distance, that's Millennium Force, which at the time it was built, of course, was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world. And that coaster that just went flying by, when it was built, it was a record holder for the most loops in a coaster, that's Corkscrew. And it's still a fan favorite. People still line up very deep to ride that thing. And it's also one of the most visually appealing coasters in the park. You actually walk underneath the structure there. The orange and red structure on the left is the ending helix to Iron Dragon, which is one of my favorite rides in the park. It's one of the last aero-suspended roller coasters in the world. There goes Millennium Force over the second hill there. And there is Top Thrill 2. Now, when I was here last year, this wasn't running. They were still working on it. They had some kinks to work out. And when I was here this year, I got to ride it, and it is amazing. It is so much better than the original Top Thrill Dragster. And it's smooth, it's exhilarating. The launch forward is no longer punishing. The original launch was so severe you could feel the skin peel back on your face. This one here is a much more gradual launch to start. Then you get blasted backwards up this massive spike here. And then you go zooming down that launch area and then over the top hat. And that is really intense. And then spiraling down back into the brake run. So it's quite a bit longer a ride now, and it's a lot more fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad they got it working well, because it's a great ride. And on the right here is the Power Tower. It's a collection of 4 power shot towers, and 2 of them will shoot you up, and then 2 of them will shoot you down. Not with weapons, just with the power of hydraulics, or actually pneumatics in this case. And here comes Corkscrew. And there goes another group of terrified riders. One of the things I love about Cedar Point, and really its calling card, is that you are surrounded by massive rides. It's not a theme park. There is a themed area, a couple of them, but that's really not what it does best. There goes Iron Dragon. What it is, it's about just completely immersing you in rides like an old carnival. It's a classic amusement park in that sense. So, as you can see, like this ride is themed to racing, so it has a sort of theme to the ride itself, but that's not really the point. The point is to get you to drop your jaw at the sheer scale of what you're looking at. And here is the store specifically for Top Thrill 2, so if you need your Top Thrill 2 merchandise, that's the store to get it in. So we'll go up and take a closer look of what's going on here. Cedar Point is known for its roller coasters. It's called the roller coaster capital of the world, but it does have a huge assortment of flat rides as well. This is one of them, like Music Express. And here comes another trainload of terrified passengers for Top Thrill 2. And notice how it snakes into the launch track. And then you'll notice this little section of track here is going to shift into place so it can make the launch and then the return and then the other launch. There it goes. And then we're going to have the countdown and off they go. I like the bleachers here for spectators. It'd be nicer if they had a slight cover over this, because it can get really hot over there. And that twist as you turn is surprisingly powerful. The tower, by the way, is 420 feet high, and with the removal this year of King Dakar at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, that leaves this coaster as the tallest roller coaster in the United States, and also the fastest. There's the entrance to Corkscrew. Really nice architecture in this park when they designed all this stuff. There's the entrance to Top Thrill 2, and like with many of the big coasters in this park, you are not allowed to take anything on the ride with you. No cell phones, no wallets, no hats, nothing. And they give you a free locker at the ride's entrance where you can stow your stuff. And this, by the way, is the pre-queue line for Top Thrill 2. There are so many people riding this, they had to actually extend the queue line out of the actual queue line and down onto the Midway here. So you would line up way at the end over, or actually back on the left there, and then it takes you way at the end over here, and then curves back in, and then you actually enter the formal queue line, which is pretty vast. One of the things they used to say about Top Thrill Dragster, the original, is that people would really wish that they would get rollback. So they would go only partly up this big hill here called the Top Hat, and then they would fall back. It wouldn't have enough energy to make it over, and they'd get to go and launch again. So they'd basically get 2 rides in a row. Well, the thing with Top Thrill 2 is you always get a rollback now, because it only makes it partway up the hill by design, rolls back, and some people actually get an additional rollback because sometimes it doesn't, because of wind. It won't make it over the top, and you'll come back and you'll have to launch the whole thing again. So that, what we just looked at, is the Hotel Breakers over there on the right. And there are the stats for Top Thrill 2. Now we're moving toward the north end of the park. Again, lots of shade and places to rest, which is a welcome thing to have, especially in a park this big. Over here on the right is the entrance to Magnum XL 200. Look at that vast queue line. And it still is a popular ride, not as much as it was when it came out, because when, of course, it came out, it was the tallest roller coaster in the world, and it broke the 200-foot barrier. Up to that point, roller coasters hadn't gone over 200 feet. Nobody really knew what would happen to the human body going that speed. But Cedar Point took a chance, found out, and haven't looked back. This coaster in front of us that looks like a wood coaster but is not, it's a steel coaster with a wood structure, that is Gemini. Bye-bye. At the time it was built, Gemini was the largest roller coaster in the world, and it is a racing coaster. Unfortunately, Cedar Point doesn't always race the trains. When I was there that day, they were only running the blue trains on one side. But it's still a really fun ride. Lots of airtime on it. And there they go over the top. Well, everything at Cedar Point is over the top. Okay, now we are on the area known as the Gemini Midway. On the right is Backbeat Q, which is a barbecue place. The ride you see on the left there going up and down is Pipe Scream. And then on the left here is one of the entrances to the third kiddie area in the park, Camp Snoopy. It's a really large area with lots of things to do. If you're curious about it, I've walked through it in other videos in the past. Coming up on the right is Monster. And again, you notice not really much theming here. It's sort of like an old county fair carnival area. As you saw at the entrance, Cedar Point opened in 1870, making it the second oldest amusement park in the United States behind lake compounds. It sits on about 360 acres. It's pretty sizable, and it got its name because originally this whole area was cedar trees. It was a big cedar grove, so they called it Cedar Point, since it is a sort of pointed area of land. It's a peninsula that sticks out into Lake Erie. And it started modestly, as many parks in the 1800s did, but it gradually started expanding and then bringing in amusement rides, and it became a real popular destination. And in the 1960s and 70s, it really started to grow, and when they became the roller coaster capital of the world, putting in one record-breaking ride after another, that's what really put it on the map for roller coaster enthusiasts. And of course, record-breaking rides make for great publicity, and the park became known all over the world for its record-setting rides, and that brought more and more people here. So now it is one of the top drawing parks in the United States, if not the world. Here over on the left is another of the entrances to Camp Snoopy. And coming up on the left is one of my favorite places in the entire park, and it was given a humongous facelift this year. In fact, more than a facelift, it was basically completely redone from the ground up. It's the Happy Fryer, and that is where I get my beloved cheese on a stick. There are a couple other places in the park where you can get cheese on a stick, but the nice thing about the redo of the Happy Fryer, which looks sort of like, ironically, a monastery now, is it's air conditioned in there, so you order, you don't eat in there, you take it out, and there you can see the umbrellas over on the left. You can eat out there, but it is nice to get out of the heat. The week I was there, one of the days was 109 degrees, so it can get very, very hot there. So it's nice to be able to get into air conditioning whenever you can, and it just gives me a reason to eat more cheese on a stick. So over on the right here is the Slingshot, which is an upcharge. The structure of the coaster you can see over there is Steel Vengeance, which we'll see a little later. Oh heck, I'll show you inside the Happy Fryer so you can see the remodel. This is a really welcome change, because previously, if you wanted to get food here, you would line up, and there's Gemini's station. People would be lined up back toward Gemini's station waiting to get their food. So it's a much more efficient and pleasant way to get your cheese on a stick. So now we're going to take a left here, and we are going to head toward one of the few actual themed sections of the park, Frontier Town. In the distance on the left, you can see the crossing for the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad, which we'll be looking at a little later. It's one of my favorite rides in the park, and it's the ride with the highest capacity of any ride in the park. There's the massive structure of Steel Vengeance, which used to be Mean Streak, one of the largest wooden roller coasters in the world that was almost unrideable. It was so painful. So they got Rocky Mountain Construction to come in and turn it into a steel roller coaster, and it's now one of the most popular rides in the park. Phenomenal, disorienting and exhilarating coaster. There's part of Boneville out in the distance there. And now we're walking into the Frontier Town section, which is themed like a frontier town. Duh. Normally, I just hang a right here and head toward the far north end, but instead, I'm going to take a left-hand turn and take you down this area of Midway, which I don't really explore that much. This over here is the Cedar Creek Mine Ride, and as you might expect, when it was built, it was the largest mine train coaster in the world. It's still very popular. And here is where you can get some fresh squeezed lemonade. And in this heat, that's always welcome. And lots of gift shops down this area. You'll also find Lusty Lil's, which is themed like a saloon, and it has shows that run during the day. And that bridge over there is now part of a restaurant complex, but that used to be a bridge for an antique car ride that ran in this whole area. I wonder if you can challenge the artist if you don't think your caricature is hilarious enough. And that was the entrance on the left there for the Cedar Creek Mine Ride. And way over there on the left is Skyhawk, which is, at the time it was built, the largest screaming swing ride. And it still is really impressive. So if you like your swings hundreds of feet in the air, then that's for you. And now directly in front of us used to be the Cedar Point Museum over on the left there. And they've closed it down, which to me is sad because it had a lot of wonderful relics in there and some really large models of some of the roller coasters and the old flume ride that they used to have here. And it was just a nice place to go and relax because it was air conditioned. I don't know what they've planned for it, but it's been closed for about a year now. Instead, we've got the farmhouse here, so if you need air conditioning, you can go in there. But the farmhouse is a barbecue place, very extensive. I'm not into barbecued food because I'm a vegetarian, but from what I hear, the food there is really good. So we're just going to take a little detour around this. And again, remember I said at one point this was all another antique car ride. At one point, Cedar Point had 3 antique car rides in the park, and they're down to 1 now. And we'll go across the little covered bridge here and back into the frontier section. They do have a lot of pop music playing all throughout the park. And that's usually in the sort of generic Midway sections, like the main Midway and the Gemini Midway. And then in Frontier Town, you'll notice the music changes, and it's more of country western sound. They also have performers that perform at the farmhouse. There's a stage outside, so you can sit and listen to music in the shade. And they also have performances that happen in various places around the park. They have a brass band that plays up by the Ferris wheel. So lots of entertainment to keep you occupied. Over there is an ice cream shop, always welcome in the heat. There's one of the stages. And the track that you see over on the left there is for Maverick, which is a really intense launched roller coaster. It was one of the first coasters that I'd ever ridden that was almost entirely low to the ground. It's all about speed and twisting and turns. I got off there pretty dizzy. But then again, I'm an old guy, so what do you expect? In front of us, well, there's Lusty Lil's, the place I was telling you about that has the shows. In front of us there is Sagebrush Sue's, which is another place you can get cheese on a stick. You can't have enough cheese on a stick. And then that covered area way at the end there is the entrance to the north station of the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad. And if you go around to the right there, that was where you would get the entrance to Steel Vengeance. There's the entrance to Maverick. So now we're going to double back and we're going to start heading back south. And you notice the trains on Maverick are really tiny. They're basically 3 little cars, 4 people each, but they have a lot of those trains. And there are multiple trains going on the course at any one time. And there you can see some of the twisting and turns. Here you're going into a themed tunnel section where you get blasted out of it and shot up into another hill. And on the right here is the entrance queue line for Maverick. There are so many people that come to Cedar Point. It usually gets so crowded that most of the queue lines are massive. They have to handle that number of people that come in a given day. So even though it looks fairly empty right now, this will fill up later on in the day. So the restaurant on the left is called the Farmhouse, but that whole little area there that they created, they call Big Cedar Farm. And there's an outdoor stage you can see sort of in front on the left there. The big gray circular building in front of you is basically just a maintenance shed, and they use it for Halloween events as well. And this big colonial-looking building over on the right is Frontier Inn, which is a restaurant that serves fried chicken. You can see the main lift hill for Maverick near the top of the screen. And there's more of Maverick's track over there. And there's a swing ride. And over toward the left are a few more food shops, a little pizza place. And there goes Maverick. There used to be 3 water cannons that would fire as the train went around. And they disabled those, and I'm not sure why. And now we're heading down the path to take us south back toward the main Midway. And to do that, we're going to go down what's called the Frontier Trail. Now over here on the left used to be the world's largest at one time Shoot the Chutes ride, Snake River Falls. And the park dismantled that, and they haven't revealed yet what they're going to be doing. And so right now, there's nothing there. In fact, it now houses... Oh, here goes the train again. It now houses 2 of the boats that used to run on the Snake River Expedition, which no longer runs. And you can see Skyhawk over there. And all that tall, arcing track in the distance is Millennium Force. And through it you can also see one of the spikes for Top Thrill 2. And you can still see part of the trough where the boat would return for Snake River Falls. So off we go to Frontier Trail. This round brick building here is a glass blowing demonstration. And the glass blowing demonstration often isn't popular on really hot days because they have a roaring fire there where they're making glass. And I love this little building here that's all made out of glass bottles. Watkins, I don't think is open anymore, but that used to have some food there. And over on the left is a grist mill, and it wasn't open at that time, but it opened later in the day. And the grist mill, you can actually see how wheat is crushed and they make grist in the mill. Here's Thunder Canyon, which is the park's drenching river raft ride. And there's a nice lookout platform here. Many of the buildings that are in the Frontier Trail section are recreations of actual buildings that were in Ohio, or they were actually rescued and rebuilt in this area. Nice little historical section. We'll go up here and take a look at the currently completely dry trough. I don't know if you've ever seen what a dry raft trough looks like, but this is it. And you notice they have those 4x4s, or maybe they're 8x8 blocks of wood across there bolted down. That's what creates the waves in the trough. And that cliff over there usually would have waterfalls coming down. So let's continue our little journey. This is one of my favorite areas of the park because it's so shady. Not in a devious way. There's some more lockers. They have lots of these lockers stationed all around the park. And they're not particularly cheap, but they're very handy. There's one at the front of the park that's $20 for the day, and you can store your stuff and go back and fetch it whenever you need to. This is the barnyard, and it's a petting zoo, and it would open later on in the day. Coming up on the left is another area of the park that used to be really interesting, but has since sort of been abandoned. It was known as the Forbidden Frontier, and it used to be an interactive area where families could embark upon this exploratory journey to help a story progress. And I thought it was a fascinating idea, but it premiered during the pandemic, and after that the park just sort of abandoned it. So this whole area out there has nothing in it now. There's Professor Delbert, and he used to be part of the old boat ride that used to go around there. He was relocated here to promote the Sky Coaster that they used to have, and has since been removed. So Professor Delbert just sits there very lonely all day. Now we're coming up on some of the historic buildings that were either moved here or built here. And it really gives it a wonderful feeling. The camels really enjoy it. It's just a sort of system shock when you look over there and see this modern steel coaster flying through it. Here's a lovely photo opportunity for your family. And over here, these used to be craft shops. So there'd be vendors in here selling handmade craft things. And it's the same with this big fort structure over here. This used to have some crafters in it as well. But again, there's not much going on here right now. And they have this water trough here. Reminds me of the old water bubbler they used to have at Mountain Park. This area is really unusual for Cedar Point, not only because of the theming, but also because there really isn't anything here that is ride heavy. So it's just an area you wander through, and it has vendors usually. This is a nice little sign that tells you about the process of building it. But there really isn't anything else to do in here except to walk through and enjoy the shade and enjoy the scenery. And I really like that. It's a nice break from the sort of intensity of the rest of Cedar Point. And like most parks now, there is lots of alcohol. Every section of the park has multiple stations where you can get almost any type of drink you can imagine. That long tunnel structure you see is for Millennium Force. Out there you can see horses being groomed because they have a little pony riding station to the left. And over here is a tunnel leading us back toward the main Midway and out of this section. And I like the fact that you have to go through this tunnel. It's very Disney-like, where you go through this portal that brings you to another land. The blue track is Millennium Force, big hills going up there. So you can tell by now there's a lot of walking in this park. Unlike places like Dorney Park or Busch Gardens, it's pretty much all level, which is nice. There's not a lot of hill climbing here. You're pretty much on flat ground the whole way, but it still covers an enormous amount of area. There's the Albert, one of the park's steam trains for the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad, and from what I've heard, that's in the process of getting restored so that it can be put back on the line again. There's Toot Sweets if you need your candy, another Auntie Annie's along with Cinnabon, the healthy treats there. There's a drink station. They have several of those around the park. And we're rounding the corner here, coming out of the Frontier Trail section, and that massive hill in front of us with the cars perched on the edge, that's Valraven, the drop coaster. And then just to the left of that is the new ride for this year, and you can see it going through its paces. That is Siren's Curse, and that has an interesting story. It wasn't supposed to be here. Siren's Curse is a Vekoma tilt coaster, one of only 2 currently in the world. There's 2 more that are going to be supposedly opening later on this year, but watch what that track does. And off they go to their doom. Yeah, the track tilts downward, holds you there, and then drops you. So it's sort of similar to the concept of Valraven, which is technically a drop coaster as well. But the tilt coaster is a little more intense because of the way it holds you there completely vertically, and also the fact that you go out on that track into nothingness. The ride was actually sitting in pieces at Six Flags Mexico. They couldn't get permission to build it where they wanted to build it, and since Cedar Fair bought Six Flags, they said, okay, it's ours now, and Cedar Point took it and erected it there very quickly this year. And they themed it to a siren, a sort of mythical, seductive creature that draws sailors to their doom. And the ride is phenomenal. I got to ride it the day after I shot this video. And there's Millennium Force advertising its 25th anniversary. That was the entrance to Millennium Force, the 305-foot tall, incredibly fast coaster. So they had a special charity event. If you buy a ticket to help the charity, then you could get to ride the coaster ahead of its opening, which wouldn't be until 2 days after this video was made. So I went ahead and got the charity ticket and I got to ride it. I was on the second train out, and it really is a remarkable ride. The day I was filming this, they were having their publicity day where they had people from the media, from Detroit, from Wisconsin, from Chicago. All these different media people came from all over to try it out, and everybody was singing its praises. It doesn't look like much. In fact, when you look at the Cedar Point skyline, It's pretty funny. It's one of the shortest coasters on the Cedar Point skyline, but it packs a punch. It is incredibly smooth, filled with airtime. You're just out of your seat the whole time. There's a drone up there filming it for one of the news stations. So it's really a good ride. I was very impressed with it. And I was sitting on the right side of the train as you're looking at it here. And when it comes out onto that piece of track, it's terrifying because you're looking straight down 160 feet with nothing under you. It looks like you're just floating in the air. It's really neat. And the trains all have really neat synced onboard audio. So the Siren is calling you to come join her. And when you get to the top, the track tilts and she goes, "Now meet your doom," and you're flung down. So like Maverick, a lot of the ride is taken fairly low to the ground with a lot of twists and turns, but unlike Maverick, you're not going as fast, so it's not as severe. It's a very comfortable and very enjoyable ride. And there goes Top Thrill 2 again. And there's the entrance to Iron Dragon. Behind us is the entrance to the Cedar Point Lake Erie Railroad on the South Station. So Siren's Curse, I think, is going to be a huge hit for the park. And I think they know it too, because if you go in this queue line, that queue line goes on forever. It is a massive queue line, which they need because they can only run 2 trains on this ride. And with the crowds they get at Cedar Point, it's probably going to be a pretty long wait. So get there early to try it out. It is an amazing ride. And notice the painting that they did, the theming on the ride. They made it look all rusted out. It's just paint on there, but they make it look like it's all falling apart. It's a nice effect. And there goes Valraven. This big building right here is the exit and the gift shop for Siren's Curse, and they have a lot of really beautiful themed merchandise in there. Again, from here, that structure looks absolutely massive and high, but compared to the other rides at Cedar Point, it's like a baby, but it still provides a phenomenal experience. And there are some lockers that you can use, and those are good for, I think, 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. But they also have lockers that are free right near the queue line because you can't take anything on with you. And now we're coming back out onto the main Midway. On the left is Coaster's Diner. And there's the station for the Sky Ride. There's a nice little relaxing area. Again, beautiful plantings everywhere in the park. They have really good landscaping. Now this area, if you remember from last year's video, if you saw it, there was a big stage here where they had sort of skateboard show going on, and that whole stage was removed, and actually the queue line for Iron Dragon was shifted to the south. So the stage is no longer there. Iron Dragon's queue is different, and that was all to make room for Siren's Curse. And also what they had to do for Siren's Curse is they had to move Peninsula Drive, the entire road that went around the park. They had to shift that off to the west a bit in order to accommodate. And I'm really glad that Cedar Point still has two methods of transportation to get you around the massive park. So just to get from one end of the main Midway to the other with the Sky Ride is really handy, and it gives you beautiful views of Lake Erie and the surrounding area. And they also have the train, which brings you to the far north end of the park and drops you off there, or you can just stay on and it'll take you back to the station. So I really appreciate the fact that you don't have to walk the whole thing. It seems like more and more parks are taking out their transportation methods, and Cedar Point's leaving theirs intact, and I like that. And there goes Valraven. So we could continue down the main Midway. There's the Coliseum on the left and some more stuff on the right, but we're going to go through this little pathway by Valraven. And there's another little plaza by my favorite ride in the park. So let's head this way. And again, lots of lush plantings everywhere. Over on our left is the antique car ride. It's a nice long ride, and I'm glad they still have one left. Again, something for every member of the family to do, rather than just a teen thrill park like a lot of the Six Flags parks. This has something for everyone. And just beyond that, you'll get a glimpse of a big round building, and that is Cedar Downs, another of my favorite rides in the park. It's essentially a giant carousel where the horses race against each other. It's a lot of fun. And it's one of the last remaining of that type of ride in the world. And there's a good idea of scale right there. You can see the structure of Siren's curse through the structure of Valraven. And it is considerably smaller, but like I said, it's still a very good ride. You don't have to be gigantic to be a good ride. So up here is the entrance to Valraven, and that little blue, talk about not having to be a large ride to be good, that little blue track and structure in the distance is my favorite ride in the park, the Blue Streak, one of the oldest remaining rides in the park outside of the carousels. Blue Streak was built in 1964 by the great John Allen and is an airtime machine. It's a really fun wooden coaster. And it's the only wooden coaster in the park. And in front of us now is the back end of Raptor. And there's the building for Cedar Downs. And they have these interesting racing lights here. Whenever the train goes by, the lights flash. So it must look really cool at night. And over there is the entrance to Blue Streak. Blue Streak was named after the local high school sports team. I remember when Raptor opened, it was a revelation because for a coaster that fast and that intense, it was glass smooth. And it was hard to find roller coaster manufacturers in those days, back in the 1990s, who could make something like that and make it so comfortable to ride. It was pretty amazing. Now it seems like everybody has figured it out, thanks to computer-aided design, when they design their roller coasters, how to balance the forces. So most coasters are pretty comfortable now. But historically, Raptor is an amazing achievement. So let's head out through this area. And ahead of us is a building that originally was a wonderful pirate-themed dark ride. And then it was converted over... Oh, there goes Blue Streak. Then it was converted over into a restaurant, and now it Well, it was a Chickie and Pete's, but now it's shut down. And again, I don't know what they planned for it. Cedar Point basically took all of its food services and brought it in-house. For a few years, they were farming out everything. So they had a Chick-fil-A, they had the Chickie and Pete's, they had a lot of other vendors. Toff's, which is a local ice cream company, did their ice cream. But they're all gone now, and Cedar Point is doing all of the food in-house. So, I don't know what they're planning on doing with this building. It would be nice if they brought back the dark ride, because that would be another good family ride. And they don't have a dark ride in the park. And what amusement park doesn't have a dark ride? I mean, they should all have one, because it's a fun experience. So anyway, that takes us underneath Raptor and back out onto the main Midway in front of Kitty Kingdom. In front of us is yet another little place to get alcohol. And all those bricks you see are people that donated for the 150th anniversary. They got their name on a brick. Our name is there somewhere. I can never find it. And that was another view of the Coliseum over there. And you can see by the arched track in the distance that we're getting close to the entrance again. Here you can get, obviously, some French fries. And sort of like at Canopy Lake, it's fun because they have that exaggerated architecture like in Roller Coaster Tycoon. And you can't really see it from the ground here, but you can really see it well on the Sky Ride. These gardens that you can see on the left here just are beautifully laid out. One of them actually is a big advertisement for Siren's Curse, all done in flowers. So, a lot of attention to detail in the park. The entrance to Raptor is just on the right there. And that big restaurant, Hugo's, that you see in front of you, that is an Italian-American buffet-style restaurant. One of the biggest restaurants in the park. That's pretty good. I still like Grand Pavilion better. Grand Pavilion is a little pricier. And over there, the ice cream parlor has some really good selections. That's very good. And for some reason, the ice cream parlor opens later in the day. I'm not quite sure why. It might be staffing. That's a problem that all parks have. But just be aware that it's not open early in the day. And next to that, on the left of the Skyride entrance, is a Starbucks. And because of coffee, of course, that is open early in the day. Coming up in front of us is the Jack Aldrich Theater. And that has shows that run during the day as well. Musicals. And you can see the carousel coming back, and that means that we're almost at the entrance. So that wraps it up for this tour of America's roller coast. Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. It's really easy to get to. You just follow the signs for Cedar Point. They will guide you. Basically off of Route 250 when you get into Sandusky, or Route 6, whichever one you decide to take. Route 6 is the back road. The last little shop we didn't talk about on the right here, the French Quarter, has all sorts of, as you can see, pastry and ice cream, more sweets, and then there's a drink station up here on the right. So if you are in the northern Ohio area, if you're passing through, if you're in Michigan, if you're in California, it doesn't matter. If you've never been to Cedar Point, you have to come, because it is a really amazing park. And you've probably figured out that you can't do this park fully in one day. It's just too big. So plan on staying over, and there are lots of other hotels in this area. Karen and I usually stay at the South Shore Inn just around the corner, and spend some time enjoying the Lake Erie scenery at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio.